welcome.
Thank you.
Amy and Sausameda.
Sausameda.
Amy Sausameda. She's going to be talking to us about digital media safety, and she is from Hope Store New Beginning Center, and so she's going to tell us a little bit about all of that. So welcome. Thank you so much,
Thanks
Amy.
for having me. So thank you all for being here this morning. Just want to talk for a couple of minutes about the agency and then get on into this. I brought some information about our agency that kind of says everything I'm going to say. There's English and Spanish, and then there's some magnets, a pen, and some lanyards back there in case you just kind of want to have something to remember our number. So we are a domestic violence agency that supports all of the FW, all of Texas. We even have people who come in from outside of Texas sometimes. We are located in Plano and Garland. Our services, just real quickly, we have 2 shelters, one in Plano and one in Garland. They do stay full most of the time, unfortunately. We have about 54 beds. That's for clients as well as children. And if someone calls our hotline and we have 10 questions, they're called fatality questions. If they answer yes to any one of those questions and they need shelter, they don't have a safe place to be, we offer it. If we don't have room, we're part of a network across the state and across the states around us that where we can get online and find a place for them to go. So we don't ever turn anybody away who's in danger. We also, all of our services for anybody who's affected by domestic violence are completely free. We offer free therapy and counseling. We have free legal services. We offer free case management, and then we have rent assistance for up to a year as well. So if you ever think that you might run into anybody who might need some help, feel free to pick up some information or if you have some questions. But we also offer free education, and that's why I'm here today. That's my job. I'm a community educator, and we have one more program, and I forgot to mention that. We do have a program that is the one that costs, and that is our batterers intervention and prevention services, which means that we work with people who have been abusive before to try to help them get back on the right track. They do have to pay for that for accountability. So, but anyway, I'm a BIP facilitator as well. So that's my job. My job is to go out into schools, parent groups, companies, volunteer groups, wherever we can, to do anything we can to try to prevent people from getting into unhealthy or abusive relationships. What we have found is that the more we can educate our kids early on and our parents early on, the less likely young people are to get into those kinds of relationships. And so because digital media, unfortunately, is one of the ways that our kiddos do fall into that. I'm here to talk to you today just a little bit about that. So the way this works is I really have my presentation for the most part that I use with kiddos. It's basically just a discussion. But what we do with parents is we use this as kind of a guide for you to have this discussion with your kiddos. Because honestly, if we're all completely honest with ourselves, and we'll talk a little bit about some apps, some things online that you can use to help you have some kind of control over the way that your kids use digital media. But we all understand, I hope, that especially as they get a little bit older, the real control lies within them. And it's our responsibility to teach them how to use media in a safe and healthy way. And so that's what we really want to focus on as much as we can. So here's what we do when we talk to kiddos. We start with this question, and so we're going to start with this question with you. Do you feel media platforms have helped you at all? I want you to think about as long as you've been using any kind of digital media, texting, social media, whatever, have they been of help to you? You say yes. How has it helped you? What do you think?
I love calendars,
Oh yeah.
reminders. You know, when I'm at the doctor's office, when they say that I'm going to schedule something, I put it in right away. And if I forget something, I usually text myself.
Okay, absolutely. Anybody else? Is there one thing that you would say is the way that digital media or digital platforms have helped you the most?
What, when you mean media platforms, do you mean like Facebook?
I mean any kind of social media, but also anything where we communicate with each other, right? Any kind of communication, digital communication.
Well, Facebook, I mean, I think we all
Well, how would you say it has helped you or better your life in some way?
Well, I don't use it very often, but when I do, generally it helps me keep in contact with my family members.
Absolutely, absolutely. Same here. Anybody who's further than a drive away, that's how we communicate a lot of time, right? Can you think of anything else that's been really helpful to you?
Information at your fingertips. Like literally right now, I flip through and you talk about media addiction, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna pull up the DSM-5 criteria for addiction to assess, does my child meet that criteria?
Oh, I'm so glad you pulled that up because we're going to talk
So,
about that.
That's incredibly helpful.
Yeah,
It
absolutely.
skips over a lot of debates. We can just go.
Absolutely, absolutely. And if you're of my age, I don't know that anybody in here is close enough, but if you're my age, that is just amazing to me. I absolutely love being able to define a word, find a song, get some news, whatever, just like that. When I can remember how difficult it was to do some of those things when I was a kid and I lived in a very small town, right? So yeah, absolutely. So I think that the place to start is for us to remind ourselves how valuable this is, right? Because I don't know about you all, but when I was raising my kiddos, because their perspective was so different from my perspective on it, it was really easy for me to just say, okay, no more. That's gone. You can't have this anymore. And now, if we do that, just think about, we're almost crippling them. Think about if someone did that to you, just yanked it all away, right? So we have to be very careful not to start there. They tell us yes too, but they don't answer the way that we do. They don't talk about email, right? Which, by the way, email, right? But they talk about being able to connect with their friends. They talk about being able to do their schoolwork, okay? Because they can't do their schoolwork without it these days, okay? Being able to know what's going on, right? Being able to be heard where they feel like people value their opinion, okay? Because so much of the time they don't think that we do value their opinions. So yeah, so that's where we start because we got to understand their perspective before we start trying to control, right? Okay, so then the next question we ask is this one. Do you feel like parents should have control over kids' access to social media platforms? Do you? Okay.
I'm going to pause and say we are doing a lot of discussionary pieces since we are recording. If y'all will just make sure you don't state like your student's actual name or anything like that. Just say my child or something in that way. Just, I didn't say that in the very beginning, so.
Okay. And also, I'll try to remember to say,
but we are,
like, we are all in agreement.
yes,
right?
but we
We're
are
not
going to be
in-
having quite a bit of discussionary pieces, and we do want you to be a part of that. Just be mindful, not say your child's
Of your
specific
privacy,
names
right?
yes.
Okay. So, so most kids, this is kind of split. You might think that most kids would say no, but it's actually a split. Every time I ask this question, I'll have quite a few who say no, but then I'll have 2 or 3 who will say, yes, actually I do, okay? Because they maybe are a little bit ahead of the curve of understanding how they work and what they need from you, right? So this is a good question to start with our kids too. And not just the yes or the no, but the why, right? Because once we ask the why, do you think that they should or that they shouldn't? Then they really start thinking about their own habits, right? And so we're gonna go into their own habits here in just a minute and talk a little bit about that. But this is another good place. Those first 2 questions, really good places to start the conversation so that we're working from their perspective rather, or a mid-ground rather than just our perspective. I do also think that we should have control. And obviously there are lots of apps and but let's talk about this for just a second. I'm not sure if everybody's aware, but within almost every social media platform itself, without getting a separate app, there are parental controls. For example, TikTok has parental controls. If you can have access to your child's account, you can install, parental controls. Instagram has a parent's control page, okay? Facebook, although I doubt seriously if any of your kiddos are on Facebook, that is there, okay? But also within the devices themselves, Android has parental control page through Google. Okay, there's a Google parental control page, and then of course Apple, same thing. They're within the devices as well. So some of those things are built in without us ever having to go out and find something new. We just have to look for it. Also, if you're not sure how to find it, YouTube it. Isn't that that's another thing we haven't talked about? We can learn how to do anything we want to do just with a single search on YouTube. So that's a good place. Asking the kids, are they aware of the parental controls? Because lots of times they're not. They have no idea. Okay? If we're going to install those controls, a conversation needs to happen, right? They don't need to just all of a sudden not be able to do something that they were able to do before and not have any idea why. We got to have that conversation, and then they'll understand where it's coming from. Okay, next question. Do you ever see or hear things online or through messaging that you wish you hadn't? I am here
Absolutely.
right now. I am taking a break. Pushed Facebook. I had to come back on yesterday because it was my husband's birthday, right? And I had to put something up. But I'm taking a little break just because it's so intense right now, okay? And almost all kids will answer yes to this. Because just understand, if you've seen some stuff that you don't want to see and that you don't want your kids to see, they've already seen it for the most part, okay? Now, if we have littles, of course, it's a possibility that they haven't, okay? But we're going to talk about how little people are and getting to some of the really intense stuff in just a few minutes, okay? So they almost all say yes. Again, if we're not having this daily conversation about not just what happened in school today, what did you learn today, but what did you see online today, right? And how can we really have that conversation unless we don't, do y'all know what, are your kids all online in one way or another? Yeah. No? Okay. What are their platforms that they use the most?
Gaming platforms.
Gaming platform. In particular,
Roblox.
Roblox, right?
Minecraft.
Yeah. My little niece and nephew, their great aunt does not have any control over their, and so when they come to my house, it's a something to get them to put the Roblox down. And they are 5 and 6. So that conversation, that's when we're in the car, what are you doing? Well, who's that? Oh, okay. Well, what do you do on there? I don't know Roblox. Explain that to me. What'd you see today? And then I hear some of the things. And y'all do realize that unless there are some intense protections on that gaming platform, there are some things happening that we do not want our littles to be listening to. Not even explicit. Just things like, I don't know, just really intense ideas, right? Like the idea of cheating, right? In a relationship. Yeah, I'm listening to my little 5-year-old niece and somebody's telling her a story about someone who cheated or someone who got killed. And I'm like, what? Wait, stop. What are we listening to? But it's coming through on her little thing that, I don't know if that was Roblox or TikTok, but yeah. Anyway, that's hard when you don't have control and you just have to lean on the conversations. But anyway, there are definitely controls for us to have, and they're already there, but the conversations are more important because now my baby girl has heard someone say, well, Sylvia, I'm just not sure that's something that is really good for you to be thinking about or listening to. They've actually heard someone say that now, and why? Well, because it's a really grown-up idea and it kind of might give you bad dreams or something like that, And so conversations, most important way that we control. And that's the cool thing about control. I want to change that idea of control because in my agency we teach the only person I should control is who? Myself. Even with our kids. Now we have the responsibility to keep them safe, right? And that requires some amount of control. But so much more important to teach them how to control themselves than for us to be like this. And so that only happens through constant conversations. Okay, let's keep going. Do you ever think you might need help? I'm asking you this question. Do you ever think you might need help controlling your tech habits or dealing with what you encounter? Let's deal with us first. Either controlling or dealing with what we encounter.
I find myself not being productive because I'll get watching something and then it'll be 45 minutes later and oh my gosh, I can't believe I've just been reading or watching or doing something for 45 minutes. I thought it had been 5. And so I think it's very easy to just get, and I'm not watching, inappropriate things. It's just funny, silly things, or I'll get wrapped up in recipes,
We're
like,
gonna talk about how that happens here
and
in
you
just a minute,
just
too.
kind of spiral, and then, oh, wait a minute, now it's midnight and I need to go take care of the things that I needed to get done. And so I know for me, that is a personal challenge for sure.
And sometimes we have to kind of institute our own kind of controls.
Absolutely.
Maybe an alarm, 5 minutes, right? This happened to me this morning. I got here 30 minutes early and I didn't want to come in. So I'm like, oh, I need to get a post ready. And so I'm on Canva creating a post, and all of a sudden it's 10 minutes till and I'm not in the building. And yeah, that happens to me. And I'm being productive even, sometimes, but it gets away, right? Anything else? What about the dealing with the things? Yes, huh?
Yeah, I think sometimes I get so involved with the content I watch, and if you watch some disturbing content or something like that, you kind of, go into that loop or start imagining things, and sometimes it gets hard to get out of that
Yes.
thoughts, or you start attracting those things.
Absolutely.
I struggle with that.
I do too. I was just telling them, I'm
Especially
officially.
after my son, like sometimes you watch something, like after becoming a parent, I think it's become more challenging.
Absolutely.
That's a lot of-
And the social media, once you start watching a topic,
And then it's just-
all the different
and
platforms,
that same content
they-
keeps coming to you. That's
yes,
it,
it's
yeah.
oh, you looked up this. Oh, let me tell you all about these
Yeah.
things. And you Googled something, so now the rest of your social media is gonna
Sometimes
show that today.
I delete my all apps for months or weeks, just that I want to focus on something which is actually present in front of me. I can do something about it rather than worrying about
Absolutely.
something which I have no control over. Sometimes I have started doing this. I have realized that okay, this is not good.
right.
I do that
Absolutely.
too. Like I said, I've taken Facebook off for the moment, just so I can do what I need to do and not get emotional in any way.
Yeah.
And I found that as a personal limit for me, I am not allowed to look at comments.
They are the most
Oh.
fun part.
Because it makes me
Okay.
angry.
Yeah.
It makes me angry, whether it's what someone says or just the level of, y'all know. I don't even have to say, right? So I just don't look at comments because I just don't want to. I don't want to. Like you said, I need to focus on things that I can control.
Sometimes reading
Right.
comments are like, okay, what type of society we are living in? Oh my God, like.
And have y'all ever, if you've ever dealt with teens on social media, sometimes we'll just be like, why would you post something like that? And I don't know about y'all, but if I'm not careful, I can be halfway through a post before I ever think about the effects that this could have, me posting this. And then I'm, delete. Or a text message. And thinking about how will this come across to the person that I'm texting it to. Oh, delete, try again, right? But if we have a hard time sometimes, think about our kiddos. By the way, we work with kids all the time on managing emotions. And we know that when they're teenagers, their amygdala functions at a lot faster, higher rate than their prefrontal cortex does most of the time. And they have to learn how to calm it down so that they can think again, just like we do when we're emotional, right? So yeah, this is a huge one. And we have these conversations about taking some breaths before we react, both in life and in social media. So, time spent on digital media. This is for teens, by the way, just so we know. The anywhere between 20 and about 45. This is for adults too, at least this much. Okay, for the most, the average. Okay, so the teens, don't realize a lot of times, and I don't think we do either, how much time we spend. Like you said, it can get away from us. We know that on our devices, we can go to the app and it'll tell us how much time we've spent on that app this week. I'm gonna challenge you to do that and see if it's what you thought it was, because a lot of times it's not. And therefore, when we're getting upset with our kiddos, because, oh, you're always on that, you're always on that. First, let's monitor ourselves, and then let's have a conversation about it, right, with our kiddos. And be honest. Listen, I find it hard not to get caught up in, Facebook, just like you find it hard not to get caught up in YouTube or TikTok or Instagram. But I'm doing this because I know that I need less time on there. So let's do this for you too. We got to be honest with them. If we have an issue with it, right? Okay, so let's go ahead.
It is impactful too to bring that up and show, if you have older teens, to have that talk with them. Did you know that on average you're spending 18 hours a week on Instagram? That's a lot. And they a lot of times don't really see that. They're just thinking, in the small kind of chunks. But when you open it up and can actually show them the data, it's a really good teaching point, talking point. If you've got
it
older.
Makes sense that they don't know, because like you said, 5 minutes feels like an hour. I mean, an hour feels
Absolutely.
like 5 minutes.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So that's the average, though. Let's remember that. Our kids that answer yes to some of these questions, or our adults that answer yes to these questions, their numbers are probably much higher than that. Okay? So this is a really good question for the teens, because almost all of them will tell me that yes, it's very hard to put it down and go to sleep. Okay. Almost all. My husband and I. Well, he in particular will want to be on social media if he can't sleep. But we're going to talk about the algorithms, like you were talking about, the algorithms and the way they're set up, right? Does it keep you from doing physical activity? Do y'all ever just want them to go out and play, or go get some exercise, right? Okay. Does it keep you from seeing people in person? One of the things that they love about social media stuff is that they have friends. And that is valuable, especially for the kids that have a hard time making friends. But we have to remember that friends in person are different from friends online. And that sometimes friends online, we have to be real careful because they're not really friends, and all of that conversation, right? But even if they are just other kids, they may not have the quality of the relationship when we can't see each other, be in the same room with each other, things like that. And there's nothing wrong with having friends online, but it's kind of scary to think that they might just have friends online. Does it get you in trouble at work or school? This is a huge one with phone, right? This is an adult thing. We all realize that, right? There are adults who get fired because they can't stay off their phone. And I say this because I know some, okay? But where do they get that? Well, from being teenagers and kids with phones, and little kids that never put their phones down, right? Does it make you do things you wouldn't normally do? Kids tell us this all the time. When I'm texting, I feel like I can say what I wouldn't say in person. I don't know if that's true with you or not, but I have to be very careful. Like I said, I need to back up sometimes and rethink about how I'm texting, or who I'm texting, or what I'm texting, because it's like it takes away some of your inhibitions, because you can't see the person, and when you can't see them, it's less likely that we're to have empathy for them. So a great conversation to have with our kiddos about that. Could any of these technologies be causing us problems? So now we're going to talk kind of about the problems that are possible. Go ahead. So the idea about constant access to the phone and texting, okay? Go ahead. So unfortunately, one of the reasons that we need to talk about this is text is one of the ways, and messaging is one of the ways that abuse happens, right? And sometimes people don't even realize it, but this whole idea of our young people who are in a relationship with someone else, and something has happened, some kind of conflict, and all of a sudden the other person is just what you call, blowing them up with text. $30 an hour. Where are you? Why didn't you meet me? Why were you talking to them? Text me back, or even, why are you late? Why are you late? Why are you late? Kids will tell us. Most of the time when we ask this question in a room full of teenagers, we'll get one or two who have been in this situation before. So not just that, not just the abuse aspect of it, but also just the no privacy aspect of it, just with friends, right? Sometimes people will talk about how their friends just don't seem to have a filter when it comes to when can they text me, even if I've asked them not to, okay? So that might be something if our kiddos have friends online, or even just on the phone, even just friends in the town. When are we texting? Have we set boundaries? Have we set boundaries about when it's okay to call and when it's okay to text? That's a really important thing. And this helps you go ahead and talk about the whole boundaries issue in all the parts of our life that we need to set boundaries. And have you set boundaries? I don't know about y'all, but I've learned that when I'm off work, I have, like for more than, just the weekend especially, I gotta turn off the alerts from email. I need to turn off the alerts from Teams. And I need to enjoy my off time. Because if I don't do that, my temptation is to answer. And now I've worked 2 hours during the weekend or during my vacation time when I shouldn't be doing that. Does anybody else have an issue?
The
Yeah.
husbands.
Okay.
You said your husband?
Husband has for sure.
Yeah, we gotta, otherwise we're working off the clock. We need to enjoy our off time, because if we don't, we get stressed, even more stressed, and then it's affecting our home life, right? Yeah, so anyway, abuse is a huge thing with the phones. 50% of young ladies that had been in some kind of an abusive relationship, right, said that they had received text messages like this. Ugly, mean, controlling text messages. Okay, let's go ahead. And then we just talk to them a little bit. Go ahead. Constant access to the internet. Okay, so that y'all know, I'm sure you've thought about the messaging, right? The messages that they get from the internet, the social media, not just individuals, but the ideas. So let's talk about that for just a second. Go ahead. And this is the algorithm that we were talking about, right? So it's done on purpose. That's what we need to get our kids to understand. The fact that they have a hard time stopping TikTok is on purpose, because there are advertisers on there who want their money, right? And the longer they can keep us watching videos, the more likely we are to buy something, right? I don't even watch TikTok, but my husband constantly sends me things that are cute, puppy videos for the most part, and recipes, right? And things that he saw that we might like to have. So even though I do not watch TikTok except for what he sends me, I have bought things from the TikTok shop. That's, how does that happen, right? So, like buttons, notifications, videos that automatically go to the next one, and they're showing us stuff that we've been interested in before, like you were talking about.
And there's people that have, I'm in my 40s. When I was growing up, we didn't have influencers, right? We didn't have people that their full-time job was reviewing products and talking about different things, and they are targeting, sometimes our teens, not necessarily in inappropriate ways, sometimes yes, but sometimes in positive ways, but then they get addicted to those influencers.
And once they have them, not only do they have advertising power, but they also have political power, or influence over sexual ideas power, or they have all kinds of power once our kids are constantly watching them. And if you think that your elementary kids don't know an influencer by name, ask them. My elementary kids that I have in my life, or that I talk to, my middle school kids, they all have a favorite influencer. It's there, but if we're not having that conversation, how can we be the influencer in their lives, right? We should be the influencer. okay? So, yeah, let's go ahead. Oh, yeah, let's go back. Do you ever wind up going where you don't mean to on the internet? I mean, has that ever happened? Where you accidentally are like, whoa, wait a minute, how did I get to this? Yeah? I mean, it has to me a time or two, although I try to be very careful because I'm just on there to find an answer to something for the most part, right? That's what I use it for. But if you're just into just watching, you can wind up in places that it didn't have anything to do with what you first originally got on there.
Kind of a domino effect. You'll watch this, and then it'll link to this,
Yeah.
and then it'll link to this, and you're like, wait a minute.
So a very
I was
dangerous
looking
one.
up a recipe on chicken, and now I'm over here.
So go to the next slide, because this is an excellent example of that, right? Our young ladies can start by wanting to look at, I don't know, an exercise video, right? And then an hour later, okay, we have explored all of this stuff where we took a quiz and it told us that we were overweight, okay, even if we're not, okay, where we found a diet that very much limits what we put in our system, where we've compared ourselves to other girls and what they look like, who, by the way, very likely have filters on their bodies, right? Or even if they don't, they're maybe not the average. We've thought about how this affects our dating life, okay? And then, you know, maybe we're gonna follow somebody or post something and start trying to influence other people, you know? So, and body image has a huge effect on the self-esteem of young people. And these videos are set up to get us to these places, okay? And so we have to be the influence about body image in our young people's lives. We have to be that influence, okay? And a safe and healthy influence, okay? So, yeah, social media and mental health. So as a teacher for a long, long time, and as a mother of young adults as social media came about, right? The danger, it's wonderful that we can look up symptoms. But have you ever looked up symptoms and all of a sudden you were worried that you had this disease? Okay? Young people do this too. And they see these people, wonderful that people are able to have a platform to talk about their mental health issues. That's a wonderful thing. But it also has a tendency to make people who are watching them, you know, it's kind of a human nature to wonder, well, does this affect me? The problem is young people feel like the internet is their powerful tool, their most powerful tool, and they will start to diagnose themselves. And that's why, okay, we have young people telling other people sometimes, oh, well, I have depression. And they might not have ever been to a doctor, okay? Or I have anxiety. And if they do, and there's nothing wrong with that. My youngest daughter suffers as she was a teenager through depression and anxiety, and still does to this day. But she went to a doctor, right? The danger is if people start self-diagnosing themselves, they're liable to start, you know, self-medicating themselves, giving things to doing things, feeling it even if it's not there type thing, you know? Sometimes even to just be part of a group. Sometimes even to just have friends like me, okay? And I know that probably doesn't make a lot of sense, but sometimes as teenagers especially, they're looking for friends any way they can find them. And if I have a group of people who have been through depression and I can be a friend with them, if I know what that's like too, then that's a great thing. But not if we're the only people advising and influencing each other, right? So we gotta be really careful about that. Let's go ahead. And the whole idea of following. I don't know about y'all, but when I was a kid, I didn't want to be a follower. I wanted to be a leader, okay? I wanted to be an influencer of other people, not a follower. But now, if we can't be an influencer, it's okay, we can follow, you know? And that's just an idea. And there's nothing wrong with following a good influence. But we also need to talk about the idea of we want to be a good influence too, and not just follow along. So things like peer drinking and unsafe behaviors, sometimes even sexual behaviors, can come about because we're following someone who is influencing us to do those things, whether it's in person or online, right? Okay, let's go ahead. And real quick though, let's ask ourselves this question. Does being online make you compare yourself to others? Do you do Facebook? Do y'all have Facebook?
I have an account, but I'm not active.
Okay, okay. I just want you to be real honest with you, so you need to be honest with me, okay? But you know, looking at the pictures of the friends that you had before, that you have now, the families, the things that they're doing, the vacations that they're taking, the money that they're spending, how in love they are, you know. We know in the back of our minds that all of that is something that someone has made on purpose to look good. But do we always think about that before we react to it, before it makes us feel some kind of way about ourselves, right? So, the whole idea of sexual content, which is what most people think of when they think of digital media, but look how far we've gone before we ever got to sexual content, right? So it's really important to understand that sexual content is not the only problem on the internet, okay? But, you know, it can be a problem. We know, but it's not just the internet. Movies, right? 80% of them have some kind of sexual content, and lots of times there is some kind of imbalance of power within those sexual relationships, which creates the idea that that's okay to have an imbalance of power. Music lyrics, I love music, and I'm going to tell you right now that in my mind, I am of the opinion that I can listen to the song. By the way, this is what teenagers say too. I can listen to the song just for the music and enjoying the song, but the content is, the lyrics are not going to influence how I believe. I think that, but also I'm not a 13-year-old kid, right? So this is a conversation that we need to have, and a decision that needs to be made together about lyrics, right? But even if we do keep our kids, or try to keep our kids from getting to explicit lyrics, we understand that they're gonna hear it somewhere along the way,
Super Bowl.
Oh, yes.
okay?
You said
And-
the Super Bowl, correct?
And what a wonderful opportunity the Super Bowl is to have a conversation. A conversation about the sexual content, a conversation about the words, but also a conversation about the ideas and why the ideas are there. And the whole thing on social media right now about whether that was the place for those ideas or not, right? Is there a place for those ideas? You know, what a great opportunity to talk to our kids, right? Yes, absolutely. And coming back to it. And it doesn't have to be an hours-long conversation, but coming back to it. And what did you hear about it today? What a powerful question. What did you hear about it today? And did that change how you thought about it? What if we ask our kids that, right? It's kind of exciting. I wish I still had, but I talk to my adult daughters about things like this all the time, okay? So this is one of the reasons why we do this presentation, is that a lot of times, all the different places, objectification happens in social media, in movies and digital media of all kinds. And if you think that your kiddos over 8 years old have not heard people say things like these, okay, I would say that you're probably wrong. Okay, so we need to be talking about the way we talk and what it means. And maybe they can say, my teenagers will say, well, when the girls say this to each other, okay, it doesn't mean anything, that's just the way we talk to each other. Okay, that's fine. But, and they say that, okay? They did when I was a kid too, in the locker room, okay? They call each other that. But it doesn't mean anything to you. But what does it mean to the people listening to you? And what does it say about you that you talk like that? What do you think that they think? And are you right? Have you asked them? things like that. Good conversations. Okay. So I'm not going to go into this because I personally believe that for the same reason, if your kid's over 8 years old and they have a social media account of some kind, it's a good bet that they've seen some kind of something pop up that shouldn't have. Okay? We can put all the controls on that we want, and we should. Okay? But that does not keep them from seeing it. It doesn't keep them from seeing it on someone else's phone at school. Okay? It doesn't. So they gotta be able to deal with it. And most important, who do you want them to ask these questions to? Who should they be asking?
You, the
Thank you. I know
Come
this
to
is
you.
hard, but they should be asking us these questions. Because aren't you the one that you want to answer this for them? And if you say no, okay, but if you let someone else answer these questions for them, they may not give them the answers that you want them to get. Okay? So these are some things that actual young people have told us they would like to know the answer to. Okay? Teenagers. Okay? And the answer to this question is no. Of course, it does not depict it the real way for the most part, right? But does it create an idea in the mind that that's the way sex should be? Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Okay. Is there anything wrong with the idea that sex is something different for everybody? No, there's nothing wrong with that, right? But we can't have expectations that don't meet the boundaries that we've set up with people and things. You know, you can have those conversations without being explicit, right? Okay. Yes, it is teaching teens how to have sex. Yes, it is. That's the answer to that question. Okay? And it has been for a very long time. That's not a new thing, right? Is it a real thing to get tricked into porn websites by using hashtags? Yes, that happens sometimes, but it doesn't happen as often as you would think, probably, okay? But they can accidentally get to a porn website. But if we've already talked about that, and we've already told them that they can come to us and ask us questions, then they can click off of that and then come ask us anything that they want to, rather than feeling like they have to explore it, right? That will get them in a lot of trouble at school. This idea, okay, all you have to do, wait till you're somewhere where you're not gonna get in trouble, okay? If you Google this, the word choking, okay, all kinds of images are gonna come up with the idea that it's fun and that it's wonderful and for kids even, for like teenagers. I mean, if you do an Instagram thing, or what is it? Any kind of where you can search images, it's just like that, okay? We have a slide that has them, okay? But I don't share it with just everybody because it's a little bit overwhelming. But the important thing to remember about this is that sex should have boundaries. We should set them ahead of time, right? And that this is not safe because it can cause someone to pass out in 1 minute and do brain damage, cause brain damage. And it can cause someone to die in up to 2 minutes. And when people are in the middle of that, or when they're angry or whatever, they don't always understand how much strength they're using, and they don't always understand how long the time is. And it can kill people, and it does, okay? So, yes, somewhat, the answer to this is somewhat for grooming and trafficking, but not as much as you would think, okay? It is an industry, and it is the industry that makes the most money on the internet still, okay? But, and it does have grooming and trafficking going on. But just in case you didn't know, most of our grooming and trafficking takes, anybody have any idea where? Everywhere. Specifically in the home. Unfortunately, most traffickers are related to the people that they traffic in one way or another, or have some kind of a relationship, right? Yeah. So that's kind of a undue, I mean, it does happen, but not to the extent that it happens with people that have personal relationships. So again, before age 18, almost everybody has been exposed to porn, right? But the youngest age usually is right around 8 years old. Okay, let's go ahead. Okay, dating violence. I'm not gonna spend just a whole lot of time on this because this is kind of a different presentation, but just know that we have to have really good, open, honest conversations with our teens and continue to ask them about their relationships and how they're going, and not just listen to their answers, but watch their answers. And because we know our kids, right? We know their body language, their facial expressions, their tone of voice, and if something's wrong, we need to investigate that. All right, let's go ahead. Yeah, so it is something that's used on the, people use the internet to control other people all the time. Phones and the internet, okay, it's a huge issue. And so, yeah, well, because digital bullying is a real thing, right? If digital bullying is a huge thing, you gotta understand that digital dating abuse is a real thing as well, okay? So, problems that we've talked about, let's go ahead. Let's talk about some things that we can do. Go back one, there we go, real quick. This is number one. We have got to have open, honest, real communication with our kids. We've got to. We can't be scared. If you're scared, we're offering them up to other people, right? Gotta stay connected. They gotta feel safe. They gotta know that we're the people they should trust. And we got to help them set safe boundaries in all of these things. Let's go ahead. All right, so you've probably seen something like this before. I'm not going to spend much time on it. It's not mine, but these are the ways that kids get through bad things. Are bad things going to happen to our children? Yes, they are. If they don't when they're children, they're going to eventually. And this is our job, to teach them how to get through those. Not to protect them from them, not to throw them in and make them swim, right? But to teach them how to get through them, okay? To be the support, and then back away and be the support. That's our job. Let's go ahead. So, show them how to set boundaries and be assertive about them. Healthy relationships have boundaries. Have you talked to your kids about boundaries? It's a conversation that needs to happen from the beginning. 3 kinds. Physical boundaries. How do you want people to touch you? How do you not want people to touch you? And how are you going to touch and not touch other people? Is it okay to set boundaries with family members? Yes, it is. Absolutely it is. We do not need to be making someone take kisses from Aunt Ethel if they don't want kisses from Aunt Ethel, because that sets up that they should let other people kiss them even if they don't want to, right? Then there's emotional boundaries. Do we need to set emotional boundaries with our kids for them and for us? Then do we need to abide by the emotional boundaries with our kids? Yes, we do. We need to ask them what makes them feel good that we say, what makes them feel bad that we say, and then we need to listen and try not to do that, and then apologize when we do, right? And then also sexual boundaries. Please talk to your kiddos about sexual boundaries before they get to be 12, please, okay? Because they got to make those, they got to know who they are, okay? And just say, don't have sex. Good luck. Okay? Good luck. I'm sorry. Don't have sex till you're married. Good luck. Okay? I'm just being real.
You can say that to remove the place, but it's gonna happen.
No. So what you need to assume is that when they're ready, they're gonna have sex, but you need to teach them about boundaries so that they can say, listen, if we're gonna do this, it's gonna be this way. This is what's good for me. This is what's not good for me. Don't cross that line. Okay? Because that way they'll have the power. They'll have the power, right? Okay? Yeah, so ways that we can start conversations with our teens. What kind of things do you use social media for? How close am I to out of time? Almost, right?
Few minutes.
Few minutes, okay.
But you're doing good.
What are some things you like and dislike about being online? I love the slide, okay? This is just, to me, I'm just like, yes. I'm just gonna pick one of these and ask them every day. Every day I'm gonna pick one of these, okay? How much time do you usually spend on social media? What are some of the ways you like to relax when being on social media? It gets stressful. It's important to explore social media in a critical way. Do you notice when photos have been edited, cropped, or filtered? And how does that make you feel? Okay, I love these questions. So these are in their handouts, right?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Signs of abuse. Okay, really important right here, please, especially if you have middle school or up. We've got to know these signs. If they stop spending time with you, even if it's not an abusive relationship, there's a time imbalance, and we need to address that. Overly anxious, grades, lost interest in things, don't want to go to school, dress differently. Now, can these things happen just because they're a teenager too? Yes, they can, but we need to know why. We need to talk and we need to understand and believe why. Check their phones frequently and return messages right away. That's a sign. If they feel like they've got to answer someone right now, we need to have a conversation about that. There've got to be boundaries. Too much time on social media, they blame themselves for how their partner or friends act. This is huge. This is like a big one right here. If you hear them say things like, oh, well, he just does that when this happens, right? Or, oh, well, she doesn't really mean that. We gotta talk about that because that's me taking their actions on me. Okay, let's go ahead.
So we also have worked a lot with students that have ADHD and autism and the impulsivity of, I need to answer this person, I need to look at this, I need to do that. And so there are different strategies that you can do and work with your student on. One being, not necessarily an elementary, but a middle high school kiddo, I want to respond to this person. Let's put the response in a note and let's set an hour timer. Okay, let's set a 30-minute timer. And that just time, a lot of times for our kids that have that impulsivity, is enough for them to come back, reread that, and think, oh, maybe I should delete it. Maybe I should reword it. But teaching our kids those skills, and we're having to teach a lot more of those type strategies because the impulsivity is natural and it's in us. And when you have ADHD, when you have autism, when you have an emotional disturbance or other pieces that are affecting you, it's so much harder for us to, decide on these things. So that's something too that we as, parents and as educators can help provide, is some of these things may be happening, but what coping strategies can I learn and do for myself? Right?
What a wonderful activity that is, because it, besides just teaching how to deal with impulsivity, it also goes through the whole identifying the emotion that I'm feeling, thinking about the emotion, and calming down long enough to decide how I'm going to react. And an hour later, am I still feeling that? Or now am I feeling a different emotion? We teach that in managing emotions all the time. I mean, that's a basic skill that we should all be doing.
And sometimes you have to do that for yourself.
Absolutely.
As an adult
that's
too.
That's what I'm saying. That's an activity.
But it's a great skill to work with our students on, especially if they're struggling with that impulsivity.
But take it home and use it for anybody who's not too. That's a wonderful activity. I need to use that activity sometimes. Go ahead. All right. So if we know anybody, but in particular our child who is involved in an abusive relationship, we want to make sure that we're not judging, because they're already judging themselves, guaranteed, and it is not the victim's fault. It is never, but they will think that it is. They will be thinking that it is. Do not try to use opportunity to teach a lesson. Please don't victim blame. Let them know you believe them and you want to help. You care about them, concern, maintain contact. And this is for anybody who's in an abusive relationship, right? Go ahead. These are things that we do not want to say. You're bad. Give me that phone. And I mean, you can take your phone away from your teen or whatever, fine, or your child, but you got to have a conversation about why and when it's coming back, and all the things that are not maybe being said. Why did you send those pictures in the first place? What were you thinking? That is not going to help anybody. They weren't thinking, they were reacting, right? And you do things like that too. I do things like that too. So that's just how boys are. That's just how girls are, whatever, right? Don't normalize any kind of abuse and don't blame them. I can't believe you fell for that. No. Go ahead. And then, of course, there are other agencies. There are 7 agencies in DFW that offer help for abuse. But we are one, and these are some places where you can get online help or call for help. And I think that's it. Yeah, that's it.
That's Amy's information there.
So thank you. I had to